and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Dr. Michelle Crouse is a doctor of physical therapy with 13 years of clinical experience. Recently, she has transitioned into a remote and holistic practice. She specializes in working with women who struggle with stress, overwhelm, and/or anxiety. She teaches techniques that help her patients calm their bodies and mind down. By addressing the root cause and by focusing on things like breathing, sleeping, and proper movement, she can help you create your very own personal care toolkit. She is active on Instagram at @drmichellecrouse, and that is all one word. Dr. Crouse, welcome to the show.
Hi, Casey. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's so nice to have you. I understand you haven't done too many of these just yet. I heard you on one or two of them, but you're just kind of getting used to being hosted on interviews. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How fun. What's been your favorite part of that, and what's been your least favorite part of that?
I love chatting and telling stories. I think the hardest part for me sometimes is like reining myself in, because you give me space to talk and I just start going. So I'm trying to learn how to overwhelm people with details.
Oh, well, that's great. I use the mute button on myself all the time, so you can talk and talk and talk as much as you like. That's why you're here. I am really curious to learn about some of the things that you are practicing now and what made you leave clinical physical therapy. So I'd love to talk about that. But first, since we don't know you that much, can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got interested in the human body and what that was like?
Sure, absolutely. So I went to undergrad and got a degree in psychology. I was very interested in the mind first and thought I would go PhD route, but just wasn't ready to commit to that. So jumped off and went into corporate finance because that seemed like a good idea at the time. And I relocated from my home state of Georgia to Florida and was a little homesick. So I brought all of my race numbers with me because I was doing a bunch of road races running at that point. And so people started to realize I was a runner. I got involved with a running group there. I was like co-president of the running club and started to learn that my favorite part of the day was talking to people about training and then injuries. And I also did not enjoy sitting down all day long. So all that together started to be like, all right, what do I really want to do? And that led me to research, and I came across physical therapy. I was very lucky and blessed to be completely healthy and had never really stumbled into physical therapy. So I thought, oh, this is really cool. I could do this. And so sort of in a blind leap of faith, I was like, all right, I'm going to go back and get the prereqs. I'm going to do my observation hours. I'm going to, take the GRE, and let's see if this is a reality for me. And I was able to get into schools, and so off I went. And in 2008, graduated with my Doctor of Physical Therapy degree. I was always most interested in orthopedic outpatient physical therapy. So that's primarily where I practiced throughout my years. And as I got further along into my career, I started to see people coming in and they would present with a problem, and that's what they wanted me to focus on. And so we'd focus on it, and it was not getting better. And that started to frustrate me. So then I started to dive deeper and be like, what's going on and how can we make things better? And very quickly, I realized that musculoskeletal pain is one portion of the problem, but it's a whole body. And that's why for centuries, medicine had been practiced as a whole body. It's gotten, segmented in modern days. So I just really started learning more about how pain presented in different areas, how it could be coming from different situations. It could be because you're dehydrated. It could be because you have a mineral imbalance or vitamin deficiency. And then I got really drawn into the emotions and how the emotions are stored in our body and play out in our pain, and started to go down that path and was interested in getting out of traditional insurance-based medicine. That to me personally is a sick care model. People aren't coming in there to really focus on their health, and it's not set up to get people to optimal health. It's a business. And so it's monetized and it's all about productivity. And I'm a really big connector. So I always struggled a little bit because I'd want to have a lot more time with my patients than the schedule would allow. So I started to look outside again to see, okay, what can I do? And I got health and life coaching certifications and was moving to that remote type of practice. And then along with everybody else last year was swept up in the current of 2020. And I had scaled back from a full-time physical therapy job, and I was doing contracts, which are like 13 weeks in a clinic at times, or PRN, which was just as needed. And those just dried up last year. So it was, last year really made me make the leap into full-time remote coaching. And it helped me solidify my niche and what my program is and how I help people.
Wow.
And so that's the long and short of it.
That's so cool. We love talking to people who use 2020 as a way to create something new or different or pivot around a very difficult situation. It sounds like you were able to do that, and it was just the thing you needed to get to slow down a little bit and kind of decide what you wanted to do moving forward. That's super cool. I do have some questions about physical therapy. I haven't been to a physical therapist in a very long time. I think it was when I broke my collarbone in high school was the last time I went. I don't know how much it's changed, but I seemed to get kind of frustrated. Like I would come in for sessions. I think they were like twice a week or 3 times a week. And I would just kind of come in and like soft pedal on the bike for 10 minutes. And then they would do like ultrasound, and then they would do a stretching technique. And then I'd have to do a bunch of things on my own. And it was like fine the first few times, but I was like coming in to do the same thing all the time. What is physical therapy like these days? I don't even know.
So with where I've been practicing recently, very much the same. It was get the patients in twice a week for 4 to 6 weeks. You do some hands-on work. Potentially you do a modality like the ultrasound you had, or, e-stim or something like that. And then you get them through exercises. To me, it just isn't specific enough to the individual. And this is no jab at physical therapists. I think physical therapists do an amazing job, have the education and the intelligence to be really creative and do stuff, but we get put into the insurance model where it's business. It's going to be run by business. I just talked to a friend who's at a new clinic somewhere on the East Coast, and her patients are scheduled based on their insurance product. So if you have this particular product, you can stay in the clinic for half an hour because that's what insurance is going to reimburse you for. Whereas if you have this other product, you can be in the clinic for an hour because you'll get more payment reimbursement. And it's really challenging to work under that model as a clinician. I totally understand it from the business side. I see the reimbursement declining. I understand the rub between the two, but I just personally can't practice like that anymore.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm so glad you clarified that. We are not knocking any one particular person. I'm sure everybody is like you. You probably got into the industry because you love people and you wanted to help people. It's not the people, it's a system that just really does not work very well. And I don't fault anybody for staying in that system as a doctor, as a practitioner, because that's your paycheck. Like that, you get paid based on that. And so it can be a very difficult thing to make a leap to something different. Is this why when people get physical therapy, it's typically like a big package they have to complete like 24 or 36 of these sessions? Is that why? Is it because they get paid?
Yeah, you're going to have an insurance product that has a lot of visits. Now, I will say over the past 10 years, I've seen the number of visits that patients have get less and less. There are a lot of products that are only offering 20 to 25 visits. And look, like if somebody's had a major surgery, I'm not saying that particular patient might not be very appropriate for that long-term rehab.
Right.
I am somebody who's had low back pain for 40 years. There's other issues. And if you're not getting better in 6 to 8 visits, we need to start thinking outside the box.
I love that. What was your favorite part of your career in practicing in clinic?
I just loved the stories my patients would have at the end when they were better and they were back to doing everything they loved in their life. I still have one of my very first patients email me like every Christmas, and it's just like, thank you. You just made me and my family like have such a richer life. And it's so touching. So that impact that I could have on people to get them back to their life and being themselves is just great.
That's amazing. I love that. That's a great story. So, how long into your career, when was it that you started to pick up on the fact that maybe the system wasn't what you were looking for as far as a way to help people? And when did you start to pick up on the fact that yeah, you may be working on somebody with a shoulder injury, but that may not be the absolute like root cause of pain?
So pretty quickly, I realized that it wasn't a good match for me as far as just the hours and the volume and everything. You're protected when you're in student clinicals, or I was personally, I was very lucky that, I never got a clinical rotation that had super high volume. I got that one-on-one time. And then when you transition to be a licensed practitioner, it ramps up pretty quickly. And I really early on felt overwhelmed. And what's interesting about when I started to notice the emotions involved in it, I can't really remember. It just sort of like came to me naturally. And then like once it hit me, it's like I couldn't not see it. I had this one particular patient who had low back pain, and it was just, she was a caretaker for her special needs child. She was the family member that like her extended family members went to for everything, like including like being called to get people out of jail. Like, I mean, and she had a very, very stressful, toxic job, and she just wouldn't get better and wouldn't get better and wouldn't get better. And finally, I was to the point where I was just going to have to be like, look, I can't justify the insurance anymore. Treatment, nothing is working for you. And she came in and she's like, I'm all better. And I was like, well, what happened? And she's like, oh, I changed my job.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, so you took one of the stress buckets away and now your back pain's gone. Okay.
Wow, that's crazy. What is the mechanism behind that? Why do we do that? Why do we have traumas or stress, anxiety, things like that, and have also a physical manifestation of pain? I think most of us kind of separate those into two different buckets when really we probably shouldn't. It's all a body, it's all a person and a soul. Like how do we like look at pain and emotions differently than we do currently?
Yeah, that's a great question. The easiest way to say it is that your body is run off your sensory system. So you're always getting input through your different senses, and it goes up the spinal cord into your brain. It's processed in the motor cortex, and there's an output that is produced. And one of my favorite mentors says, it doesn't the body doesn't have to make any sense to you. So why your body decides to go protective and tighten your back up when you're feeling stressed out, it does not have to make logical, rational sense, but that is the pattern. And most often, as you become more body aware, you can start to hear the whispers in your body. You can start to hear, oh, it feels a little tight, and do something about it, versus where a lot of people are stuck right now is they just blindly ignore all the signals that their body is telling them. So then it does become a scream, and it does become that really at points debilitating pain for people.
Mm. I love that you mentioned protecting. I don't think most people realize that when you get injured, your body is trying to help you. It's not making you hurt because it doesn't like you. It's trying to give you a signal, communicate with you that something is not right. And I think you probably noticed this, being in the medical industry, that like there so many people in that system are given, something to maybe treat a symptom, but they're not going to the root cause and addressing it there. Is that something that you noticed when you transitioned over to your new practice?
Exactly. That was actually my fundamental issue with everything, is that, we were not addressing the root cause. It was just a patch, either a physical patch or a pain patch. And I also really believe that people have been outsourcing their power for so many years now, like ever since the pharmaceutical model took off. And our bodies want to heal and they want to save us, and we just have to tap in and listen to them a little bit more.
Love that. Okay, so if I have a very stressful day at work, I work 60 hours a week, I have a family I need to feed, I am just filling my body with crap all the time, horrible diet. I'm rushing home to watch Netflix, and so my only way to chill out, and maybe I drink too much over the weekend or whatever. Most people are so busy that you're right. They don't have the basic awareness. They don't have the ability to feel inside the body what is going on. And so how do we like practically start to bring that back into life and start to pay more attention to our bodies?
So the biggest one that I recommend people start with is breathing, because when you think about human physiology, you can go for a long period of time without eating. You can go for up to a couple days without drinking, but you can only go for 2 minutes without oxygen exchange. So breathing is the physiological fundamental basic that we all need to master. And everything that you just spoke to is going to put people into really poor patterns of breathing. And so people will be like, I'm breathing, and technically you are doing the gas exchange, but you're not breathing correctly to engage the nervous system. So the shallow, rapid chest breathing that modern humans do tilts our nervous system into the sympathetic nervous system. So that fight or flight nervous system that people hear about. And what breathing does is breathing can help you tap into the parasympathetic or the rest and digest nervous system. And it's the quickest way to do it. And it does not take a ton of time commitment. I know breathing is getting much more popular these days, which is great. Sometimes people may feel a little overwhelmed where they're like, I don't have a half an hour to sit down and breathe. And it's like, no, you just need like a minute or two just to do a quick few simple techniques. And it's just like, it's like building a house. Like when you start to lay the foundation down and you learn this one technique, over time, it's going to be easier. And that allows you to become more aware of what your breathing's doing. A lot of my clients are in front of the computer all day long and have a tendency to actually hold their breath. And so they'll start to notice it with time. They're like, oh, well, I wasn't even breathing. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, you realize these patterns you have. And then when you become more aware and you try the simple techniques, then that's when you can start layering the more advanced, expansive techniques on.
Gotcha. So what principles, I'm so glad you talked about what improper breathing is. What kinds of techniques do you rely on to help people breathe properly?
So the biggest one you're going to hear first is diaphragmatic breathing. The diaphragm is the muscle that controls respiration, and it's, the dome that sits below our rib cage and lungs. And that's what people should be using to have expansion come out of. So becoming aware of that first is good. And then you start to go with breath holds. So my two favorite breath techniques are box breathing, where you're going to inhale, hold, exhale, hold for the same count. And so typically you try and start with 4 seconds on each of those. But sometimes you'll find that you're too stressed out and you can't hold it for that long, or you can't exhale for that long. So you're always going to want to match your body where your nervous system's at, like trying to crush it to 4 seconds when your body's screaming at 2 is a mismatch. So also teaching people that like, here's the technique and a good parameter to start. But again, more awareness, pay attention to how you're responding, and let's see where you're at. If you're really stressed out, a 4-7-8 is a great breathing technique. So inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Exhalation is the part of the breathing cycle that really opens up the parasympathetic nervous system. So even if you get nothing else from this, just think of exhale longer than you inhale.
Wow. We are going to be hosting Patrick McEwen on the show here in the next month or two. And he wrote the book, The Oxygen Advantage. And he talks a lot about breath holds and how helpful they can be for exactly what you're talking about, proper breathing technique. And, I feel like I've kept myself pretty fit. And, I've raced road bikes for many years of my life. And, I feel like I'm pretty healthy. But I was pretty stunned when I started, implementing a few breath holds. I could not hold my breath for very long. It was very uncomfortable. And according to him, it's kind of getting used to the carbon dioxide buildup. But if you practice some of these things that you're talking about, maybe hold your breath and walk a few steps. That box breathing, I absolutely love. When you can kind of increase your time tolerance to not have to take a breath. It's pretty amazing what it does. You're right. It is a huge stress reliever. And I notice I can calmly breathe in and out through my nose all day, pretty much every day. And I just feel way better. It's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. His book and his work is one of the, foundational principles that I learned from. So that's awesome. He's going to be on the podcast.
That's
He's
great.
an amazing resource.
We're so excited to host him. We've also hosted James Nestor. He wrote the book Breath, and he talks also a lot about mouth taping. Is that something you practice? Do you ever do mouth taping? Just curious.
Yes, I do.
Nice.
I have pictures on my Instagram that or I usually put them in stories because I don't want to totally scare people off of, I've used some products. There's some really good products out there. I love Somnifix, and you can just use 3 millimeter tape from when you go to the drugstore in the medical aisles or whatever. It's super easy. So, it's definitely. I know if you're hearing about this for the first time, you're going to think, oh my goodness, but it's great and it changes. I track my sleep. I have an Oura Ring, and I saw pattern change for the positive in my sleep cycle when I started to tape my mouth.
Wow, that's amazing. I did a whole podcast episode about this as a guest. And yeah, it's super interesting to talk about. It is a little weird looking, but it's an amazing practice, just putting a little piece of tape over your mouth while you're sleeping. And it forces you to breathe in and out through your nose the way you should. And you should notice that your tongue feels better. My teeth feel better in the morning. I get way more restful sleep. I remember dreams more. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay, so that is one of the 3 pillars that you talk about for health. There's 2 others. I want to say the second one is movement. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Awesome. So how do you help your clients think about movement to help them deal with stress and anxiety?
So the first principle is to take away the old thought process that movement equals exercise. Movement is a container and exercise is a part of it. But, there's so many people who just think, oh, I went out and I did my hour of CrossFit or Orange Theory or this or that. And then they go and they sit at their desk all day long. So there's actually a term called actively sedentary now, where your 1 hour of cardio or strength does not let you go and sit for hours and hours at end. So first we explored that human movement is very dynamic, lots of range of motion, and it's more skewed to low energy practices. Long walks are a great thing. I don't need you to go out and try and crush a 10-mile run every day, but if you got in the habit of walking 5 miles over a course of a day, that would be really, really super helpful to you. I really like to use neuro-based drills to help curate whatever that individual client needs for their body to feel safe to move well. And so that's where the specificity and the one-on-one comes in, because there's all sorts of drills you can do with all different body parts, but we really need to assess your movement qualities and then have you go through some drills and reassess your movement qualities. And it's really, really crazy because you can have somebody move their eyes to the left, and then you go and recheck their shoulder motion and it's gotten tighter. And they're like, all I did was move my eyes to the left. And I'm like, yeah, but your body finds that threatening. And so then you tie it into hey, well, how's your desk set up? Is your computer kind of to the left all day? And do you get tired really quickly and feel fatigued and stressed out? And they're like, yeah. And it's well, you're forcing your body to do a pattern that it doesn't actually like. So we work with those drills to help them rebuild that, because you always want to have access to full motion and have everything in your body feel good, not feel threatening. And so we start to specifically layer okay, well, this is how you retrain this.
Wow. Bethany.
Yeah.
So Bethany does myofascial tissue release with her people, and she's very good at it. And what she'll do sometimes is have the significant other or somebody else in the home without the person knowing, take a picture of what their posture is while they're working. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, we all moved inside. We're not at the very best desks. I mean, my desk has been the kitchen table for all year. That's not necessarily the best position to be in all day.
Right. And it's, one of the other things I like to show a lot is it's really easy to make workstations dynamic. I'm literally talking to you right now. I have an Amazon box propped up, my computer's propped up so I can see the screen well. I have a extra keyboard so that my keyboard's down low, and I move it around. I sit on the floor, I'll stand up at the kitchen like you do, and I move throughout the day. And that's one of the beauties of the remote work. You're not kind of stuck and locked in this like corporate cubicle where you're like, I can't do that stuff and look strange. And I understand some people are restricted, but within their restrictions, we work to do whatever we can to help them,
That's amazing.
just optimize.
Yeah, that's so great. Bethany couldn't make it today for the interview, but she would be nodding her head with a huge smile on her face at everything you just said. That is so important. We couldn't agree more. That kind of position, what can you describe what that causes in most people? Because I think if people could like see what we see when we're trying to help people and help them with their posture, they might realize, oh, these types of patterns, me sitting causes this issue. What are some of the really common ones that you see?
Right. So you're going to get what's considered forward head posture, where you're going to bring your chin forward, and that's going to put a lot more stress on your upper neck, the cervical spine, because you just are automatically looking at that screen, and it's going to cause your shoulders to round forward and your chest to cave in. So I believe it could be up to a 30% decrease in ability to fill your diaphragm. So kind of why I like my pillars is they all interweave. So it's like if you're not moving well and you move into that forward rounded posture, you can't breathe well. So then you're automatically going to feel more stressed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that rounded posture is actually the posture that you go into in a fear-based stress response. Like it's that curling in, it's that protective response. And not to say that people are actually doing that because they feel that, but that's the way the body interprets it, So again, it's all about learning how the body works and becoming more mindful of how you can reposition it and use it to your advantage.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That's amazing. I love that you mentioned walking. Would you rather have people walk like, 10, 15 minutes here or there, or do you prefer that your clients have some time where they carve out where they go on a continuous walk for a longer period of time?
I would say the more frequent, shorter walks at this point, just because if you're breaking up your movement patterns more frequently, you're not stuck in that sedentary lifestyle.
Gotcha. Great recommendation. We couldn't recommend walking enough. We love it. Okay, so we've talked about breathing. We've talked about movement. I love that you call it movement mindfully. I try to do the same thing. I think that's great. Let's talk about the third pillar, which I also really love, and that is sleep. Why did this become such a big deal for you?
It became a big deal for me because, most of us who have transitioned into some sort of remote holistic setting, we have our own journey. And so part of my journey was a sleep struggle, anxiety and a sleep struggle. So I worked to fix myself first, and so I also realized by fixing sleep, you set yourself up to start the day physiologically off in the best way possible, right? Like when you don't sleep well, your hormones are messed up. You're going to crave sugary sweets. You're going to want caffeine, which is then going to like send you into another hormone spiral, which if you start the caffeine crutch, if you drink it too late in the day, then that's going to break your sleep cycle. So it was really through learning what sleep should be and how to do it that I came to understand how fundamental it is. In our modern go, produce society, we'll sleep when we're dead. Some of the thoughts out there are like, oh, I only need 4 hours of sleep a night. No. There are some people that might possibly need as little as 6, but the reason they say 8 hours is that all the sleep studies show that's around the average that people optimally function at when they do that. And I don't know if you're into sleep. I don't know if you've read, there's a book called The Power of When, which is really cool, that talks about different sleep chronotypes. And there's Sasha Panda's book. I can't remember the name of his book, but he talks about the chronobiology of organs and when the organs are optimized to work best. And so kind of through those two gentlemen, I was able to really hone in more practices. So that's why I'll talk about sun gazing a lot and getting morning sun like first hour of the morning or evening sun, last hour of the evening. Ideally both, but I will be fully transparent. I'm not a super morning person, so I struggle with the morning part. But getting those rays when it's at a low light level or ray level that it's not going to injure your eyes, when you can just like gaze at it, you don't have to stare directly at it, but just so that you're getting it in your eyes, no sunglasses. It resets all your sleep hormones. It optimizes your circadian rhythm, and it's free. Like it's completely free. Anybody in any situation can do that. I personally have a beautiful park to go look at, and I'm very blessed for that. But like, if you're in a major city, you can step outside and get it.
Yeah.
It's not adding a huge commitment onto your life.
Yeah, there was no chance I was going to let you go from this interview without talking about sun gazing. I think it is so critical, the things that you said. I love that you're calling sleep a practice, and I want to talk about how we can practice our sleep. And I love that you talked about the importance of getting sunlight directly in the eyes without sunglasses. We talk about that all the time with our clients. It's so much better to start early in the year, get your eyes used to the sun. You could do exactly what you said, low gaze while the sun is low on the horizon. It's a little bit more of a reddish hue, and get your eyes used to that, because that's really important. That's really critical. And I think a lot of people miss that. Do you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and they're so fearful of it. They have to have their sunglasses. And sure, if you're going to be outside in high sun for long periods of time, by all means, we have to start using protective devices. But again, our body is brilliant. We didn't come out with glasses, we didn't come out with all this stuff. We came out with the ability to adapt. And I love the point that you just said, it's seasonal, right? So like, if you're not used to this, yes, the best time to start this practice is in the winter. Get that base and then build into the summer, and then you shrink back in the fall and the winter, and like it's just this beautiful cycle that occurs.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. So I kind of got introduced to this a few years ago, and the way I think of it is almost like the way I think of hormones. You can tell me if you agree or disagree. Like, I think a lot of people would say like the hormone insulin is bad, or the hormone cortisol is bad. And it's like, no, it's not bad. It just needs to cycle. It needs to be high at certain times. It needs to be low at certain times. And I kind of think of that as far as my balance of blue light and red light. Like, blue light itself is not bad. I'm looking out my window. It's a bright blue sky. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like you said, it helps you wake up, be alert, scan the horizon for predators or threats or things like that. But you don't want that to be turned on when you're trying to sleep. And when so many people are not only not getting outside during the day, they're not getting any blue light, then they come home and turn on Netflix and they don't protect their eyes from that blue light, you're not getting any separation. So I'm sure it affects people's sleep and energy and all kinds of things like that. I like to think of it as a pendulum. The pendulum needs to swing, and the harder it swings one way, the harder it can swing the other way. Is that the way you understand it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, everything's in rhythm and cycles, and it's not black and white. That's the beauty of it, is you can talk about what's going on, the timing of the year, what's going on in your personal life. It really, really changes. But, again, there are some basic things to optimize it. Like you said, the blue light, red light balance is key. Right now, when we record the summer, it's kind of in our favor because this is the time of year where you get a lot of the blue light naturally, because the sun stays up where we are for so long. But, when you get into the fall and winter months, that is more challenging, and you do need to put perimeters in place to protect yourself. I have like my red light cave in my room because my living environment, I don't control it. I rent, so I can only control my bedroom. And I have Himalayan sea salt lamps, like 3 or 4 of them. And I use blue light blockers, and I just make it as dim as possible, but that I can still see. And I try to get off technology earlier so that I don't have that artificial blue light blaring into my eyes.
Yeah, love that. That's great. What other things do you do to practice sleep? What other things can people be thinking about?
So technology, again, is a big one. It's not only the blue light, but it's just the hyperstimulation from it. And so if you can start to work towards setting a bedtime for your phone, that's, about an hour beforehand. I am somebody that my phone is on airplane mode at night. There's literally nothing that the outside world is going to disturb me from. It's just I'm at a place that I can do that. I'm very aware of that. I will say I don't have a spouse and I don't have children. So, I can do that safely because of my life. But however, within your own life, you can manage, just setting it to important contacts only. You don't need to have all your social media notifications going off, all your email notifications going off at all times a day, just trying to dial that back as soon as you can. And then, doing winding down practices, doing some breath work, journaling, reading like a regular book, not on your phone or your Kindle. Those are great ways to just calm down before sleep.
I love all that. Look, if we had to swap lives and I had to go to East Coast and you had to come out here to Utah and you had to live our life and vice versa, we wouldn't be very inconvenienced. We live very, very similar lifestyles. I love it.
Right? It's so fun to connect with like-minded people.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I could never get over it. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about grounding. I know you've talked about that in the past, and I just out of curiosity, what are some of the benefits of grounding? What is it, and how do you incorporate that?
So grounding goes with my sun gazing. If I'm outside getting the morning or evening sun, my shoes are off and my feet are connected to the earth because it's going to be an energy exchange. So you're going to get the negative ions from the earth, and that's going to help restore the energy balance in your body because all the electronics we're around are positive ions. So we're just getting bombarded by that every day. So again, it's really, to me, all boils down to the nervous system, like maintaining the nervous system. A lot of times when we sort of are talking about stress in the nervous system, people are like, oh, I should never be stressed out. And that's not true. We need your body to be resilient and so that you can go into stress response and you can come back out of it. We don't want to get you stuck either way, right? You don't want to be in that fight or flight, nor do you want to be so low tone that you can't get into the fight or flight when you need to. And so grounding's just a really, again, easy, free way to work on that.
That's great. What other practices do you personally leverage in your own life that are just so ingrained in your life now that you wouldn't give them up?
I'm a very big fan of the infrared sauna. That was an investment that I invested in 4 years ago, and it's a daily practice at this point. I love it. It helps me regulate my body and gives me a space to really calm down and do some of my breath work.
Love that. We've lost so many sponsors over the course of our episodes. We don't have anybody who makes soda or cold cereal or anything who wants to sponsor us anymore. But why don't we try to gain a sponsor? Can you plug like a particular brand or a particular kind that you really like?
Clear light infrared saunas is a good one. It's low EMF. They're going to be good. Clear light infrared saunas. That's my goal device. So how about that? We can say that, currently, again, I don't own my house, so I don't have some place to install a full sauna. But that would be what I would do. That's house goals,
Great.
Shall we call it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I have a few clients who are fortunate enough to have them, and they say the same thing. They just totally swear by them. That's great. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to ask you about this. I think this is super interesting. I did not know this existed an hour and a half ago until you told me a little bit about it. And I'm so curious about it. So what is human design?
Yes. So human design is an energetic blueprint that's based off your birth chart. And it's something I found last year in that space after I'd finished my contract and was spinning around in the fear that everybody was feeling in 2020, and came across somebody talking about it on a mindset podcast because that was kind of what I was focused on. And so heard about it and I was like, let me see what this is. And so I ran my chart and I did not like my chart. But there was enough, it's a very, very complex system when you first look at it, but there was enough about it that made me interested that I kept going forward with it. And so really it's a nice communication tool to figure out how your energy impacts another and vice versa. Because I'm really into the concept that we're all individuals. It's kind of like back to the neuro-based drills. Like, sure, I have a bunch of drills I can give people, but I get very specific because your body and your body's history is different than my body and my body's history. And when I found human design, it did the same thing. And it really allowed me to see myself and validate myself and understand where there were some troubles, why I had some troubles in life, and see where my strengths were, and see how I can interact better with others.
Mm. So practically speaking, what is needed, on the client end and on the practitioner end, what is needed to be able to do this? Is it like a questionnaire? Do you fill things out? Do you use any devices? Like, how does it actually work?
Sure. So there's several really easy free sites that you could go and run your own chart. Jovian, Archives, or Genetic Matrix, and I can email you those if you include links in anything. We could link that so people could go look at it. And you need to have your birth date, your birth time. That's really important because it's specific to your birth time, and your birth location. And then based off this, you get a chart, which I don't think you've pulled yours up yet. And if you haven't, you should pull it up and see what it looks like and give me your first impression of what you see.
I have been waiting for the big moment, the big reveal, and I just pulled my laptop over towards me and I just opened mine up. So for the listener, Dr. Crouse was nice enough to actually run this for me. She asked me about an hour and a half before we started if she wanted mine run, and I was like, sure, hell yeah! Like I know nothing about this. I would love to learn about it. So I sent it over, and I just pulled it up because I wanted to talk about it. I don't even know what I'm looking at. There's a few columns of information, and then there's a body and a lot of different symbols and numbers and things. Can you explain what I'm looking at?
Yes. So that is your body graph right there. It's 9 centers, and the centers that are white are considered to be undefined or open. And those are areas in the body which you're going to take on other people's energy. So you would learn to manage yourself around other people and not take on their energy. And then the areas that are colored in means you have consistent access to that energy. So when you look at this for the first time, it is completely overwhelming. And so what you want to do actually is you want to just take a look at your type. So you are a splenic projector.
I'm a what? Sorry?
A splenic projector.
Okay.
Which means that they, in the 9 body centers, because this is based off the I Ching, the Kabbalah, chakra system, quantum mechanics, it's a diverse religious and scientific background. The synthesis of it is very interesting. So when we look at the type, we have sacral beings or non-sacral beings. So you see the square, not the very bottom square, but the one that's right above the bottom square. You have like a color 5, 42, and 9. You see that one?
I do, yeah.
So that's considered the sacral center. And yours is white, so it means you're undefined, which means you're either going to be a projector, a manifestor, or reflector. So there are 5 different types in human design. And that box right there determines what energy type you are. Wow. So 70% of the population have that defined. It would be colored in red on your chart if it's defined. And 70% of the population have that, and they're referred to as either a generator or manifesting generators. And so they have constant access to the biggest motor in the body. They can go, 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 go. You as a projector don't have that. So you might naturally, if we started chatting, tell me, oh, I do find that I need more rest, or I need to be away from people, because you have a lot of open centers. So you may have found throughout your years that you feel overwhelmed when you're around a lot of other people, and you don't necessarily feel like it's coming from you, if that makes any sense.
2020 taught me that. If you would have asked me that question before March of 2020, I would have said, no, I love people. I love big football games and lots of crowds and the big gym that we used to work at, the energy of all those people. Once that went away, I was shocked that I don't miss that at all. At all.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And then as the world's opened up a little bit and you've been back out around people, can you feel the difference? Like when you are in a
1,000%. We just took a trip to Mexico, and just being in the airplane, in the airport, just around people, the more I go out, the more I'm just like, I want to go back in. I want to go watch Netflix at 4.
Yeah. And that's completely appropriate for your energy type. That is what your body needs, and it's how it's letting you know. And so you take that energy type and then you use strategy and authority to make decisions. So again, what I love about human design, what I see about human design is it's another way to use body awareness. And your body awareness is going to be different than my body awareness, but it's gonna create that stable energy and access to you being able to live the life you want to. So as a splenic projector, your authority is splenic. And so it means that you have instantaneous like gut reactions. And that's what you need to listen to. And that's how you need to make decisions according to the human design theory.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's so funny. I really connected. I remember this distinctly. I really connected with an article in the New Yorker that talked about how we make decisions and how some people will sit down and it will take them 2 hours to decide what to watch on Netflix. But based on the content of that show, they might decide to move to New York City with no other hesitation. And I felt like a lot of like the biggest decisions for me personally have been very spontaneous. I test drove one car and bought it on the spot. Like, yeah, that's super interesting.
Splenic authority, So my design is I am a emotional generator. So I've got that constant energy as a generator. So what they say with the sacral defined is like when you're lit up by something and you just feel this natural draw to something, that's what you want to do. And you can just do something for hours at a time. Now, with the emotional authority, 50% of the population has that. And there are multiple different emotional waves within so the triangle on the right, yours is white with a 22 in a red circle. So yours is undefined, but you can have multiple waves coming off of that. And it will tell you, some people get like really high feelings and then really big lows. And some people are kind of a little more stable. I've really seen a lot of how we've kind of unfortunately diagnosed mental disorders in these waves. There's a personal story of someone in my life who'd struggled lifelong mental illness. And when I pulled their chart, they had one of those big spiky waves, and it was like, no, this is natural for them. And if you've been encouraged to understand that, like, you're going to feel high and you're going to feel low, and like, let's not judge it and let's just get more curious about it. I think there's some real healing properties to understanding that. So wow. I find this tool fascinating. I like to use it with my clients, at least in the sense of I request that they give me their birth details so I can run the chart, because it also gives me a way to look at it and help navigate their journey a little bit. The last thing I wanted to tell you about this is, so there's splenic projector, and there's feelings that get associated with like when you're living your design correctly versus when you're not living your design correctly. So when you feel successful, that's when like you're spot on, like everything is going the way that it should go for you. When you start to feel bitter about something, that's a huge indicator that like you shouldn't be doing this. Why shouldn't you be doing this? Let's take a look at this again. This is not the right direction. That's your body's inherent way of saying, hey, this is your warning sign, Casey.
Wow, that's so interesting. Have you ever pulled this for somebody and got the results back and been like, wow, this person is just like, they're just a total jerk for sure. Like I just based on these results, I don't want to work with them.
No, because it's not, there's no judgment on your design. Like each design is unique and beautiful. Now they have what they call self and non-self themes. So you could probably argue that anybody who's not living in alignment could be considered a jerk, like they're not, they're in their shadow side. And then that just gives you the option to help bring them to be they're the self and the highest expression of their true design.
Wow. I love that. I want to go back to you. You said you didn't like your results in the beginning, but how, in what ways has this helped you, navigate your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first heard this, I was, very overwhelmed by everything that was going on in 2020. I was very burned out from how I was trying to continue to practice PT, but didn't want to be practicing PT. And so when you heard about sacral versus non-sacral beings, I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to be a projector. I'm supposed to rest all the time, because I was exhausted in April, May of last year. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna be given the red light to rest. And I wasn't. I was an emotional generator. I was not happy with that. Wow. But once I learned the system, it turns out that that generators or manifesting generators, just because you have that sacral energy, if you're not using it correctly, you too can burn out. So with a redirection to something I'm more interested in, then my energy is starting to come back.
Wow, that's so cool. Can you tell maybe like one more story of another client that you've worked with? I know you talked about the one, but any other specific stories that come to mind?
As far as their human design chart?
Yeah, how they use this information and had some improvement in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we go over to the generator types, when we talked about the two different feelings, the theme feelings, the generators, when you are doing everything that you should be, well, you feel satisfied. And when you are not, you feel frustrated. So I was able to let one of my clients know, whenever you verbalize the word frustrated, we need you to start looking at that behavior a little bit more, because it's really your body telling us this is not for you, and why are you trying to push through that. And so it was pretty neat to see her start to experiment with that a little bit and realize herself, oh yeah, no, that really doesn't feel right, and start to make some changes along those lines.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a cool tool. I mean, all of these things we've talked about are little parts and pieces of the puzzle. You have been able to bring these all together and just offer so many things to your clients. What does it look like if somebody wants to work with you? How, in what way do you work with people?
Awesome, thanks. So right now I'm doing one-on-one program, and it's Ease Anxiety, Trust Your Body Again. And so it's a 6-week program that we do 2 weeks of breathing, 2 weeks of movement, 2 weeks of sleep. Because again, I'm very big into assessment and integration. So I have a ton of knowledge and information to give you, but information alone does not get the results that we want. So we need to match teaching with integration and implementation, and making sure that you understand and that it's going the way that we think it's going to go. And then there's additional 2-week Voxer support. So there's a total of 8-week Voxer support on it. Eventually, I think that I will be doing something like you could go through the program and then you could transition to a membership practice, because nervous system work takes longer to really see results from. You can get a great benefit from learning the information and getting the foundation set, but it's going to take time and practice to continue to get the results that you want. And so I'm seeing that people want to continue to work with me past that 6-8 week mark. And I enjoy that too. I've gotten to know them. I know how to progress them. I know how to regress them. So I'm thinking it's going to be a membership based community where there's some access to one-on-one, but then we also have some group meetings so that we can, share our stories, because it's really through sharing and community that we heal.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I think about, when somebody does want to continue with you, that does feel awesome and amazing, but contrasting, what you're doing now versus what you were doing with physical therapy, I'm willing to bet you feel a lot differently about getting fired from somebody when they feel like they got exactly what they needed. They were able to make some changes in their life. They feel great. And now they no longer need a coach and they can go out and live their lives. That must feel amazing.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I want for everyone,
Wow. That's so awesome. You described a little bit of things that you have coming down the pipeline. Is there anything else that makes you excited for your business, and maybe what your vision is for the future?
Yeah, now that we're starting to reopen, I would love to eventually have some more retreat type concepts. And that's, more like big dreams, where it's in, like a nice open area, lots of land where, we could all, again, it's the community and the integration together. I think that would just be very healing and very fun at the same time. So that's long-term goal for me.
I love that. Wow, this has been such a fun conversation. I've learned so much from it. Like I said earlier, I think if we had to swap lives, we wouldn't be very uncomfortable. A lot of really great practices, and I'm going to be curious to hear what is your number one. Like, if a listener were to leave this conversation with any one piece of information, what would that be in your mind?
It's that you yourself hold the power. You don't have to outsource to anybody else, and go find the teachers, the information, the resources that you need to begin to trust yourself again and dive back into that power you have.
I love that. Again, it's got to be so amazing to get to be able to do that every single day. I think the courage that it took for you to step away from, something that wasn't quite, filling your bucket or being really fulfilling, to do something now where you're really helping people. It must just be an amazing feeling. We're so grateful for you and for your work. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and work with you?
So come find me on Instagram. That's the social media that I'm active on. And I've got my link tree on my bio that you can click to book a consultation call. I have a free 15-minute consultation call. I'm super into connecting with people. No pressure, no sales tactics or anything. I just always am real curious where people are at. I'm very naturally a resource person too. Like, a lot of my human design is about that. So if I'm not the right fit, I want to get you to the right person or place or content that's going to serve you, because I just really want people to be able to live their best life.
That's amazing. What a cool offer. I encourage the listener to go over and check that out. It's very easy to find. It takes you right to the link. It's amazing. And it's so cool that you would offer that, and that you take so much passion with connecting people, and you're not trying to force anybody into anything. We are so excited to follow you in the future and see how this evolves for you. Like I said, we're just so grateful for you and your work and everything you've done in your life. And again, the courage that it took to step away from something that wasn't fulfilling you. It's really just amazing. So Dr. Michelle Crouse, thank you so much for everything you've done. And thank you for taking the time to be on our show today. It was a real honor to host you.
Thanks, Casey. I enjoyed it so much. I'm so glad we're connected now.
Yeah, me too. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.